Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Eyes 8.6. Sorry. One thing, new people, and the channel is growing, I know, but if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe if you at all like this type of content. I give a lot of historical commentary, as I call it, while playing, so you might find that interesting. But so if you would, just hit that subscribe button. And also, just let you know, I love to hear comments from viewers. So please comment away about all kinds of things, whatever you want. So let's get to playing. We're sort of in a lull right now as we slowly march across Africa. Oh, they got reinforced. Okay. There we go. Let's ground attack here. There we go. And we've got another section of Tanganyika. Well, Portugal. Yes, you can have all the energy you want. I think I should up the supply production a little more. And no, Italy, you're not going to get any lend-lease. Okay, now, units here. I just quite honestly felt it was faster to load you up and send you down to Tanganyika. Well, we don't need two. How long have you got? Oh, you've got all of them. Two garrison. It's okay. Yeah, we can just transport you down there. I'm deciding to leave all these guys here. We can look at terrain types. We've got mountains through here. We got forests and such. So we're going to push. Might as well push against South Africa. So we're going to do all that with this, but we're going to limit it to this. Now we've gotten with what is it? Keep Mombasa or Nairobi. Mombasa, yeah, Mombasa the port. My understanding, Nairobi, especially up at the top, the mountain plateau is fairly nice temperature-wise. Down at Mombasa, I understand it's hot, or much hotter, maybe the right terminology, but. So, but we're now that we have this, we have a bit more supplies coming through. This is actually the biggest of the two ports. I am expanding that by one, so that will be able to flow in, I think, enough supplies to keep this level of an army operational. Pushing against the Allies. And I think here, yes, we are back here. So, let's send you somewhere else. Up to here. I think that's where we were sort of going anyways before. And here. Let's attach this to the 11th. And I think we're going to send it over here. We've got a hold point here if the Allies land there, and then the main one here at Casablanca. So I think the only thing that the Vichy still have here are two HQ units. And this would be just some heavy flak and whatnot, which will help. Because I'm expecting a scripted invasion to hit there at some point. Okay, well, yeah, I think that might be for the best. Oh, what am I doing? As you're watching, I'm sort of instinctual. Not that I don't examine things, I do, but I am somewhat instinctual here on how many divisions, where, kind of thing. Not too far. We're going to name this a division. Just because the first... So, 46th Panzer Division. Just since the first thing is an attachment. These are, well, still 9,000 troops, so lots of divisions were running around the 10 to 12,000 mark. But it is weaker than most, and I do have 2 of them now here. I'm hopefully in conjunction with a few other units, hopefully they're going to be able to smash through and run deep. At least that's my sort of hope for them. Along with some other, you know, more conventional, heavier Panzer units. And that's 18,000 men there, so run deep and cut up into here faster than hopefully the Soviets can effectively react. Now, how is, well, fighter command? Okay, no order. That means you're down here. Okay. Well, I'm going to leave you there for a moment. How badly are you shot up? I'm bad enough that we'll take you offline. Get repaired. Okay, here we go. Well, let's put you up to repair in a second bit here. Just trying to mess with the bombers as they come in. I expect to be bombed. I like having an effective AI. And no, at the time of this recording, I have yet to get my upgraded internet connection. Long story short, sort of the block where I live was left off the plan because of things. That's sort of the long story. Well, I've poked the company. I've got them willing to install into the block that I live in. But the company sent over the paperwork that needs to be signed by one of the, because I live in an apartment, one of the owner of the apartment, and they got all that signed, and then they decided they need another piece of equipment or something from I think a sub company, so they have to sign another thing, so that just delayed everything. They didn't send it all, so they sent it all at once. So as of recording this, I still haven't got that in. They're willing to install the stuff, and the owner of the complex, who I do know personally, not that he's any great friend or anything, but I do know him, is relatively happy to have it, but it's just sort of slow and getting the stuff signed and over and doing, and it just takes weeks long, now months longer, but weeks more. So then once I get that going, what I want to do is to set up a couple occasional, like once a week kind of games. So we can have some human opponents, and we'll set up some decent rules. There will be a certain amount of pausing, but not nearly the level of pausing that I'm doing with this. But we'll have to work it out so that it's playable. So I'm sort of a little worried about that. We haven't been seeing this. We saw it a lot earlier on. That crash when production screen is open, and you get that red negative or 0 or whatever happens there briefly, like for 24 or 48 hours, and the game crashes. So if we're playing through and keep the game flowing, and somebody opens us up and boom, crashes for everything and lose, you know, it depends on how long, but lose time and things like that. So to sort of keep the game flowing, figure out a ways to do it. And so I know there's a few of you are interested in it, but the reason I haven't moved forward is at least at the time of this recording, because I haven't gotten the internet connection, and one, I know a few test things, it's playable but slow with one other person, and I'm not quite exactly sure where, because my upload is really bad. But quite honestly, one of the major reasons I want to take the time in doing, because I do love playing, so I would love to play with other people, but if just to play would take away my time from recording episodes or from modding. So, and it's a substantial time. It's not just play for 20 minutes once a week. No, it's obviously play for a few hours. Is to build up the channel, is so that I can broadcast it, and so it maybe we'll have some other, I presume, small-time YouTubers, just because I'd love a great big-time YouTuber, but maybe some other small-time YouTubers that could also get in and stream their version of it too. But we'll see what's going on. Okay, Minister Morokovec, I guess that's how you pronounce his name, was a joint minister of education and national enlightenment in the puppet government of the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, which was recognized by the Deputy Reichsprotector Reinhard Heydrich in January 1942. As propaganda minister, he worked to persuade the Czechs to be loyal to Nazi Germany. Yes, he very much was one of the, if you will, pro-Nazi collaborationists. We've talked, at least I've talked earlier, about some of the various collaborationist elements in France, and there are definitely varieties in Czechoslovakia. A bunch of them just wanted to do it to just sort of the minimum needed to sort of keep the peace, if you will. But others really wanted to, whether they thought the Nazi Germany was going to win and wanted to personally get the best place in it, or they truly just believed in the general ideology of Nazism or whatever, fascism, Nazism, and so that they were ideologically on board. He was one of the particular, at least, ideological types. So yes, we're going to introduce a new Enigma key for our submarines. Okay, great to introduce. So that's a 4-rotor Enigma machine, I believe. It looks like one to me. What they did is they added a 5th rotor into it, basically, to make it that much more complicated. So lose a bunch of supplies, gain 125 marine and encryption machine gain. Okay, currently, let's take a quick look at that just to see what we are at. Okay, so it's a 43 technology. Oh, this is even before that. That event hasn't fired yet. I want this up here. Normally don't leave these sitting here long, but we're going to leave that one sitting for a moment. Oh. Yes, we want this. Bank of International Settlement. Plus 4% ICs, great. Money, great. Yay. How long until it? Okay, January 20th. We'll wait today through, because I want to make sure that we give them supplies. Sure. Okay, encryption machine advanced. So, yes, this is like talking generally speaking. They did do huff stuff, which is high frequency direction finding. in to pick out radio transmissions, basically, of ships or submarines or whatever, to triangulate in on them, or even just you know, you can get one bearing, you know, and you know where is it strongest to know it's in one direction, even if it's not a triangulation. It just tells you, you know, from here in one direction, so you can get an idea of where the enemy submarines. So that is definitely a real thing that the Allies were doing. But the Allies also were reading the mail, and basically with the IBM machines and some basic knowledge of this, to the point, anything that they were capable of doing, the Allies could decrypt. They actually got faster at times because they were able to deal with stuff, could decrypt the stuff faster than the Germans could decrypt the stuff. So, but then they would add a new rotor, they would change some of the procedures, do some of the stuff, and then they would have to sort of rework it. And so what German thought was, and the Germans really believed this, at least some of them did, and some of the people in technical authority, not just some soldier somewhere, but the people in technical authority thought it was entirely unreadable. But with all the submarine, particularly losses, I think some of the guys got suspicious. So that's why they introduced the new, and they may have gotten suspicious that maybe because one of the subs that they did capture with an Enigma machine, they disappeared the crew. I mean, they didn't. Well, okay, they did something illegal. They didn't do something horrible and evil like the Nazis and kill the crew. But when you capture prisoners, you're supposed to report them to the Red Cross. That's the legit thing to do. What they did do, though, is they took these prisoners off the sub that they captured and put them in a special camp or wherever, away from any other prisoners, and didn't tell the Red Cross because they didn't want, and I don't know if at some point they just gave the names out but whatever, but they didn't really want the Germans to even be suspicious that this submarine that just disappeared, because they didn't announce that they ever captured the submarine, or of course they didn't announce that they destroyed it because they didn't know what submarine. If you sink a sub, you don't know its number, you know, you just suspected submarine sunk kind of thing. But they kept it so dark so that the Germans wouldn't get even the clue, that the hint that they had an Enigma machine. Now they got Enigma machines by other means, from the Poles and some other stuff, but as time went on, they got the newer machines. So, and that's that, you know, getting the machine, taking it apart, figuring out how it works in detail, and then writing computer programs at the time to sort of mimic that. That's how they got better, faster. Now there's two things that I guess you can call encryption or stuff. One is like the Enigma machine. You type in an H and out it comes a 5 or whatever, you know, and then the other person at the other end dials the right thing. He types in the 5 and it comes out an H. But the next time he types a 5, it comes out a Z. And you know, it's the idea that it's not always the same letter substitution. Okay, that's one way to make your stuff, if you will, encrypted. There's another thing that can be used at the same time or independently. It's like Operation Overlord. Okay, so let's say the Germans are able to decrypt something that said Operation Overlord is going as planned, or preparation is going forward as planned for Operation Overlord. That only tells the Germans, if they believe that it isn't disinformation, that preparations are going for Operation Overlord. They have no idea, if without any other information, what Operation Overlord is. Okay, so you can come in and going. One of the things was, I don't know if any of you, well, maybe a few of you, because we do have some very knowledgeable people here. For a while, it was really good to be a bigot. If you were a bigot, you were a good person. A bigot was a person who was in on the planning for Operation Overlord. So the bigots had the the planning responsibility, knew the plans, and could talk about what was going on. So people would ask, "Are you a bigot?" And if they didn't answer in the right way, to sort of, because it's something like you could, "Oh, are you a bigot about?" It could be about something. And so if you were sort of in on the club, you knew how to answer that. But if you weren't, it wasn't something that was meant to be. If it was overheard, or you asked just somebody who wasn't in, because there were a lot of high level people, generals and whatever, that commanded the division, that had no knowledge for the planning of Overlord. So he wouldn't be a bigot. Um, so you could be a general, or you could be a private, because a private or somebody could be a bigot who just, he's a file clerk and he handles the files, and so he knows stuff about it, but he's inside. So that was a way to ask things. So mentioning all that, one or some of the stuff that they could do is they could create, I don't know, a map that has random sector numbers out here. These, well, let's pull it out so we can see them. These little squares, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going along, it goes 1, 110, 3, 2 million, and so or somehow way, of giving out information in such a way that being transmitted over this stuff, that only the two people on either side could possibly know that information, until the other side gathers enough information to track where the transmissions are from, to figure out the number of this square, if you will, or something like that. And one of the sort of surest and almost impenetrable ways to do that is a one-time pad. And that is to hide information, that one submarine and the base both have this pad, that each message that they do a different use it once and it's never used again kind of code system. So you can do those kind of things. But the Germans were so secure, they believed in their enigmas, that they didn't do a lot of that stuff. But they got suspicious, I believe, is why they added another rotary. And I think it goes from 4 to 5, but maybe it's 3 to 4. God, I don't remember, but that kind of thing. So we've got that through natural and other bonuses. So that's now down here at the bottom of 0. And let's see here with how much 250 gives us. Okay, just a good starting, but it's now a 46 technology. So thank you, but well, we're going to stop that. So, and now we have some free technology. Well, that's cool. We got that, and plus a start for someday and doing another encryption. January 42. Radar, sonar. Shipbuilding, maybe. No, we're not going to do those. Those are mostly bad effects if we have enough fuel and things. Ah, here, these we need to do. Okay. Oh, and we have a bit of another. Okay. And so yes, especially if you were able to do a one-time pad, that is almost, and normally message is short enough that you can't figure it out by knowing the language, say, and knowing how often E's or A's or something are used, and going through all that cryptography. But even without a one-time pad, just every few months changing the charts or changing, different stuff, and just have the operators and whoever, got to be good, but maintain a we're going to send you out. Okay, where do we need to send you out? Send you out here. That's too far. Okay. Here. These are the Italian subs, that's why they're a bit shorter ranged. No, I'm gonna, yeah. Sort of worried about sending them out. Well, let's do it. And then they'll call in, because I'm gonna wait until these guys are a bit more healthier. And we have an airplane for the carrier. Or a squadron. Okay, whatever. Okay, artillery brigades increased to 6. And come back here. No, it's here now. Yeah, supply optimization. Organization, yeah. Let's take a quick look here. Okay, if we do another monumental architecture, we could get a feared national police building, which would reduce volt risk. Movie studio, I don't want to do that. Somebody did the math on that one time, and I don't know if they changed it, but it would take a long time to actually earn your money back. Research efficiencies, Central National Intelligence Headquarters, that would be nice. Presume the research efficiency is industrial espionage. Imperial Ministry, yeah, ruling party support, that's all good. Yeah, there's some good things there, so we're gonna do that. Giant infrastructure project, we're done out with that, so there's no more useful things for us to get with that one, so that's a no for sure. Don't need to waste it. Don't know who's trading through here. Maybe I should send a submarine, because the Italians sure seem to be sinking somebody's stuff. I don't know if somebody's trading with Turkey. I don't think there's any possessions that the Allies have here. Oh, Division HQs have it. Yes, that is good. And, well, it's 43, so we're going to continue that. Okay, no, we don't need that now. I have a hard time trying to envision needing buy a mercenary unit, but maybe I will at some point. That'll fire, and just one more unit will be the key. No. Let's see how our friends, the Japanese, are doing. Maybe push a little bit further than we looked before. And I think losing a little bit of ground to the British there. Well, I've increased that by one province. And they're sort of, well, okay, I guess he's going to occupy, then they'll become unstuck on this island. A week. Need to get the supplies through to them. That'd be good. I hope. Okay, army unit command control, good. No, I want to stay there, of course. Don't want to come up. I see he's down by 5%. I think it's down by 250 now. Supply throughput, Navy basing efficiency, your efficiency, yeah. Yeah, I think we need to do that. It costs, but I think we need to do that. Good. Okay, Rommel. I think I'm going to send you south. You, yeah, you're going the right way. You're going to attack up into here. You're going to support that attack. And you are going to also support that attack. And you will make sure our air intercepting this way as big as possible. Just in case the enemy has any sort of arrow. Okay, CAG bomber focus. I believe these are all upgradable to the ships that I'm currently building, the squadron I should say. Yeah, just after losing the last one. This one is the more important, I think, because that'll give air defense and air attack better against the British or Americans or whoever. And yeah, I think we'll spend enough on it for one more level, at least on bomber. Oh good, we're here, so now you always get done with time of attacks here. These provinces are so big. Now, I think these guys can reach down to there. Yep, run with that. There's 4 bombers coming into 4 squadrons coming in. Bomb. Yeah. I'm gonna mess with you. Take away some bombers. One of the Panzer Grenadier divisions. Well, they're all 3 critical, the north, south, and middle. Moscow is a very critical and important way to do it. And by the time we get there, we'll be well fortified, if not already well fortified. Here we have the slight advantage of having a northern ally here that we can come in and reinforce if we wish to. Oh, and there's well, I don't think that's fortified now. So if you can get through here, there's reasons to now that, especially now that are my allies here, I should be thinking about this as moving in. I really should. Okay, I'm going to start thinking about this right now. It's definitely not too late. We're going to definitely, because I got a bunch of forces down here. I'm going to want to push out of... I got some mountain troops. Don't know that I really need mountain troops here. This is all forest. So yeah, so some armor units and other stuff to push down out here early on. Early on. That'll be a good... That's different than I normally do. So I'm going to get some forces up into there to be able to push from here in day 1. We're still in January, plenty of time. Now the southern sector with its, if you will, prize in the game of, what is this, 10 victory points? Yeah, 10 victory points. Stalingrad is another major prize in the game. Now it's near nowhere of, you know, of long ways from the border here. That's sort of one of the reasons why. This is not that far away from, you know, East Prussia to Leningrad, and obviously very close to Finland. Moscow, well, I never made it to Moscow, of course, but it is, and it's a ways to Moscow, obviously, but as we can see here, there's, through here, a very good path, if you will, to race straight there. Come down to Stalingrad, here in the purple. It's a long ways from, a very long ways from Romania. And when they pushed for Stalingrad, this map is a bit funny, but when they pushed for Stalingrad, oh no, it's here, yeah, that's right. When they pushed for Stalingrad, they were sort of here, and I think they believed, and I think was the case, is the Soviets were really thinking there was going to be another push to Moscow. So they thought it was like the idea that we push here, and as you can see here, this desert here, in real life, my understanding, and you could pull out a rail map of the Soviet Union at the time, but there wasn't a whole lot of abilities for the Soviets to advance across this desert in strength. Like, oh, we're going to move 3 corps over there, mechanized, and we're going to supply them with all the fuel and all the ammunition they need. No, that wasn't the case. If it wasn't for the Volga, because the Volga is a very navigable river, a very significant to the lifeline of the Soviet Union for economic reasons, plus the rails that move in this area. If it wasn't for that, I don't think, and it takes both the rails and the river, for the Soviets to build up that attack from along here and attack from the south here. Had they been able, because you know there was that holdout on just right about here, I think it was, on Stalingrad, on a little bit of a bank to keep, because they almost took the whole city. And had the Germans not been trying to take the whole city, I think it's very apparent from looking at it that they could have readily shifted a lot of the forces that were in the city to cut the Volga and come around here and then worry about mopping up the city. I'm not talking about, you know, the last days of fall when the weather was still good and we could still no, I'm talking fairly early on when the Soviets were, you know, they just thought a little, you know, another division, another battalion, another whatever, and we're just going to get the city taken. And they should have isolated the city before they continued that. Once they saw that there was a significant fight and a division couldn't readily take that city, they should have surrounded the city. And part of that, in doing that, it would have cut the Volga, cut the rail links, at least immediately in here, you know, in the immediate zone. Cut that, and then it would become impossible to supply the Soviets in Stalingrad that were holding out. And you can go back to that old Call of Duty series that I have in the start of it, where you're playing as a Soviet soldier. That's very much, in my understanding, how it was, is that they were just throwing in resources, and often men unarmed, because they knew that there were dead men in front of them to get the weapons, and it was just trying to shove in just enough resources, and resources that they could afford to lose, as opposed to well-trained armored units or something, just to keep the fight open. But had they cut that, all that would have been cut off, and it might have taken a while to mop up, but mopping up would have been without any flood or trickle of, however you want to describe it, and it varies at times, of supplies into the besieged at Stalingrad, had you cut that off. But so the idea, though, is to come here and cut off the Soviets here. And if they'd cut to here, all I had to do was get to here. And they sent the tanks, but things were going so well, and they wanted to race down to get the oil wells and stuff, so they sent the tanks down here, the panzers, the very mechanized forces, when you needed to keep your eyes on the prize and cut this. But if you had cut that there and secured that, this whole southern flank here becomes a mopping up operation. Again, I'm sure you could probably force march out a few divisions to get out, or force march in a few divisions, but it would have been haphazardous in comparison to this. And I do not think, if you come sufficiently cut the way here, that the Soviets would have been able to do, because to effectively cut off the besieged at Stalingrad, they needed to come from both the north and the east here, because it's sort of an L shape. They had to come from both directions to do it. Because had they just come from the north, one, you can swing forces here. Two, you would have more forces that are here that would normally have been here because you wouldn't have needed them. And three, all the forces that were tied up fighting in Stalingrad, mostly the Germans, wouldn't have been there. And even if you would have had 50 guys holding out in the tractor factory for 6 months, or in the grain tower or something like that they somehow had food and they're sniping at people moving around, just let them be. Just deal with it. And none of the ICs here are worth the Stalingrad mess for. So had they come through and cut here, this is why, again, rails are so effing important to this game. And maybe I'm getting through to the devs. I know they're not watching this. Maybe once I put it in here, I'll put a time post link to this. But here, this is where, without rails, and you go, oh, low infrastructure or whatever. Yeah, well, you just need to sort of show it with, and especially with the regions, and they're so big now, it doesn't matter. This desert here, again, I don't think it's some super desert. I don't think it's that much of a desert. I haven't been there, but it's not huge. It's dry and it qualifies as a desert. I'm not doubting that, but it ain't the Sahara, I don't believe. And yeah, you can get across here, but not the level of logistical support. And even if there are a rail or two, you can still cut that, and so that the railheads are sort of in the desert, wherever you cut them, with a blocking force. And so you don't need division all along here. You just need division, like the 3 rail points or wherever it is, and hold this here. And once you do that, then you've got this whole southern flank. Yes, it extends the flank of the army considerably than trying to hold back in here. But it would be eventually anchored on the Caspian. And you have, mopping up down here. Now, they plan to destroy Baku oil fields. They had them wired, and the guy in charge was told to, blow them if the Germans get, I don't know, somewhere in here, or whatever it was. And so there's a lot of controversy over whether Germany could have taken that oil fields in a useful state. Because you could blow oil fields up enough. And if you also know how to, and I don't know if they knew how to do it, you can start oil fires that are incredibly hard to put out. I come from an oil family that knows a little bit about that, and you can do it so that, hell, you can even, with the Baku type field, you can maybe blow it so they're burning underground for a long time. And now that, I don't know if they would want to do that, because it could still be burning today. There's an oil field somewhere in this part of the United States. I think it's been burning for like 50 years now. Underground. You see the smoke coming up. You can walk around it. I mean, the ground isn't overly hot or anything. It's a smallish oil field that caught on fire somehow. Forget the exact story. And it's still burning away. And it gets just enough oxygen down in there. But it doesn't get too much, so it doesn't all like burn up. Like big fire, and I'll go away. But just enough, because it's sort of oil. It's in a field enough that it's intermixed with rock and other things. Just getting enough, and just deep enough and far enough down that they can't effectively go in and put it out, and it's spread over enough of an area that it's out in the desert, so it doesn't get ever rained enough or flooded enough or whatever to put enough water on it to either cool it or drench its supply of oxygen enough, so it keeps going. So you could do something like that to the Baku field, but then that's maybe permanent. But you could definitely blow the drilling, the pumps, and all of the other oil handling stuff that would take a few years to get it back into shape, to be functional on any scale again. But either way, you could have cut off all of this and mopped all this up, instead of having troops holding this line, and other troops trying to fight their way down into here, you know, and then have the Stalingrad catastrophe. Learn how to speak. Okay, so, but it's so far away, and it's such a strategic point that if we take that, now I am planning on doing some naval invasions, which pushes us a little bit closer, but still that's a long ways away. So that is not, at least the planned objective in the first season of invasion of the Soviet Union. Would like to get to Moscow, would like to get to Leningrad. Stalingrad, we'll see, but that isn't the goal. But bearing in mind, we still have the goal of moving down here. I want to get to, Rostov, and, hold down here. I do want to get to, that in the first season. Okay, well, mentioning all that. So where do I put, because they're all important. All three are important to make good progress on. Where do I put that unit? I think down here, because this is a Panzer Grenadier unit with assault guns, but I think it's going to be a pretty kick-ass unit. So maybe not quite his level of kick-ass unit. Balak. Let's do Balak. Okay, now we have those two long-range subs, and I think they're going to do long-range stuff out like in the Indian Ocean in places. So we're going to give him one that should have been out a long time ago, but they're just not good enough, I thought. Though he doesn't have a lot of skill now. I'm gonna pray. Even though they gave him a 0 because it's supposed to be sort of, all these guys are sort of early on to, if you spammed out enough submarines and did them one guy, one sub squadron. That's why they gave them all, and you would build up a lot of skill. They sort of, I don't know how to do this, over time or quickly. So that's why they did what they did. But let's see if we can get him to. To your boat, and then we'll start sending you out. We'll see. Maybe we even end up basing them out of some Japanese ports or something and striking out in the Pacific somewhere. Okay, you're back. Yours going to take a long time, so. And you're fast, so let's head up here. Oh. You're not fast, but you're going. Okay, good. Okay, Bulgarian occupation forces for Serbia. See, I went and looked in the code or in the events, and I didn't see the event that normally gets Bulgaria. I just didn't. Well, Black Ice is screwed up in how well it's organized. Some stuff is well marked, other stuff is chaotic, so it's hard to find things. And I don't know why it didn't join us early on. It should have joined us when we gave him this, but I think maybe that event didn't fire because Romania came into the Axis a little too early, but I don't know if that's the reason. And then they shouldn't have got all this stuff if it is. But so these, again, badly coded event. Breakdown of Vichy. Okay. After the breakdown of Vichy's will to resist the Allied advance in the North African colonies, the Axis responded by reorganizing the emerging power vacuum. Tunisia was occupied by the Axis after Operation Torch in 1942. Excellent. We need that.